Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Yellow Room Podcast. I'm Nika Hansen, your host, and I want you all to be great. The Yellow Room is all about empowering you to unleash your full potential in every single aspect of your life. And I hope that you've received just that up until this point. If you consider yourself a part of this great Yellow Room community, be sure to do me a few favors. First, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Secondly, if you enjoy any of the episodes that I put out or today's episode, help me to extend my reach by sharing it with a friend or two. Again, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back for another episode. In fact, a bonus episode for the Love series. I hope that you all are enjoying all of the content that I've been putting out and all the interviews with all of the lovely guests that were so generous to be a part of this series. Today, you all are in for a treat. So we will be talking about communication. A lot of us, I know myself, I am a work in progress. God is not finished. So today's episode is for me too. It's for everyone because the end goal is not for us to be perfect, but to be better. So today's special guest is Felice Mathie. He is a speaker poet, so he'll be sprinkling a little poetry on us in today's episode. And he helps spouses and spouses-to-be communicate better in their relationships. After losing all of his immediate family at the tender age of 13, he became obsessed with relationships. He took that obsession into poetry for over 10 years, and now as a public speaker, he combines poetry and Christ-centered presentations to help offer solutions to the number one problem in relationships: communications. Again, you all are in for a treat. I hope that you all enjoyed today's episode. If you're listening, go ahead and share on all of your social media platforms. Let people know what you're tuned into and enjoy. Family, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Love series. Today's episode is actually a bonus episode called Communication is Key. And we have a very special guest, not only for what he does and what he'll be talking about, but he is the Yellow Room's very first male guest. So I'm super excited to have him on and for him to share all the great things that we're going to discuss today. But Felice, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about what you do, how you became a marriage coach, and why.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for sharing your platform with me and ask your audience to kind of, have some grace with me today as I battle with sore throat. But I definitely wanted to be on this platform, so it's worth the pain, Jesus. Yes, Lord. But my name is Felice Mathie. I'm a speaker, poet, which basically just means I'm a public speaker who uses spoken word poetry in his presentation and his counseling. And I help spouses communicate better, less arguments and more unity in their marriage. A little bit about me. I usually start this, every time I do a podcast or a workshop, I usually start it with a poem because that segues into my bio. And I think my bio is important because I truly believe that the man behind the message is just as important as the message. So let's get started with that. I've never loved another like I loved my mother. You see, I'm the only child with no sisters or brothers other than the brothers I've been blessed with by other mothers. And I love my brothers and many others, and I love my sisters from other misters. And I love my wife, there's no one like her, but all them put together is but a feather compared to the love that I have for my mother forever. I wrote that poem as a ode to my mother. And November 28, 1996, she died. I remember walking into the hospital. It was my stepfather and I, and we walk into the hospital. She's laying in bed. She doesn't see us yet. And as soon as she sees us, she immediately starts gasping for air. The machines are going crazy. Beep, 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 beep. Doctors and nurses suddenly rush in and they quickly rush us out. Now, mind you, I didn't know that my mother was dying right in front of me. I was a kid. I was 12 years old thinking, we're in a hospital. These are doctors. These are nurses. Why is my stepfather crying? I mean, adults look ugly when they cry. I hope I never grow up. These are the things I'm thinking as a kid. But that following morning would be November 28th, then that my mother would die. So fast forward, right? Maybe a week later, my stepfather goes to Haiti and he's murdered, right? Not a week later, right? But a month or two later after he is in Haiti, I remember a lady that I called grandma, which is just a lady that my mother knew from Haiti. She sat me down on the couch and told me that my stepfather was beat badly by his ex-wife, and then his body was dragged from a moving vehicle. Okay, well, fast forward a few months, my granduncle, which is the last living blood relative that I knew, he dies of diabetes. Now, mind you, I was 13, and within less than a year, I lost all my family. Now, what do I mean by that? That means even at the age of 35 now, I have no blood relatives. If I were to die right now, that's the end of my bloodline. So now, why do I bring all that up? Well, from age 12 to now, I obsessively looked at relationships. Like, if you have any blood relations, whether it's a son, a daughter, a mother, a uncle, anything, and even if you hate them, the fact that you have them, leads me to respectfully say that you would not understand how obsessively I looked at relationships. I needed to have them. The most important one I needed to have was a romantic relationship, because I need to repopulate the Matthew Earth. You know what I'm saying? I needed 6 babies. That was in my mindset. So fast forward, I finally meet my wife, and then we get married. And 7 months after our marriage, she sent back to her country of St. Lucia. And for the next 4 years, we only saw each other physically like 3 times. So our marriage revolved around communication. So if you put my bio and you put the 4-year long distance relationship, God pretty much prepared me for the number one problem that I've seen from my observations and of relationships, and that's communication. So now I just share what I know, and hopefully that helps people, and it's been helpful to a lot of people that reached out.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing and just being very transparent. I can only imagine how you felt as a 12 and 13-year-old, like going through all of that. I lost my mom at the age of 20, and I feel like, she didn't get to see, like I felt like my life really hadn't begun just yet. But now, like, hearing you say 12 or 13, I can't even imagine. Like, my heart goes out to you. But thank you again so much for sharing that. Definitely, it's clear that your passion has been birthed from pain, and I'm so glad that you are willing to help other people see what you see and appreciate, the relationships that are around them. So I'm super excited for you, and I just thank you.
That was perfectly said. I might have to use that summarized version of that. I always feel like I give a mouthful when I'm trying to explain what I said, but that was a good summarized version of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very appreciative right now, because I know a lot of men, and if you're listening and this doesn't apply to you, I'm sorry for the generalized statement, but I find that a lot of men, they find it hard to talk about stuff, just be open about their past experiences, their hurts, their pains. So yeah, I'm
true.
Very thankful for you to share that on this big of a platform at that. So.
That is true. A lot of men do suffer from that.
Yeah. So we will be talking about communication first and foremost, why it's important and the effects it has on relationships, marriages, and even friendships. So if you're single listening to this today, I wholeheartedly believe that at the core of any marriage or relationship, you have to be your partner's friend. Like, you have to know
Absolutely.
what it means to be a friend first and foremost. So please take heed to what he's about to share. Take notes, pause it if you have to, but tune in. I know this is going to be therapy for me as well, because no matter how much I've worked on my communication skills up until this point, I know God is not finished with me yet.
He's not finished with me either. You never get to the finish line if you're really trying to develop,
So yeah, if you can go ahead and tell us the importance of communication and how it can affect the relationships around us.
Well, communication is important because it's like the bridge between two different minds, two different feelings, right? Like, nobody in this world is exactly alike, not in thought, not in behavior, right? Not in reaction. So if you were silent, if you couldn't speak at all, no sign language, no form of communication, then how would you form some type of union or bond with someone else? So that's why communication is so important. It's very, very important. And like you mentioned earlier, friendship is the foundation. Like, I know when we're in the dating scene and we're looking for someone to love, it's all about attraction and the vibe. That's pretty popular nowadays. The energy, that's pretty popular nowadays. The connection, that's pretty popular nowadays. But mind you, if you are truly friends, those things are defaults. Right? Like, you don't have to focus on the vibe and the connection of someone who was just there for you when you needed them. Someone who just gave you advice, someone who was supportive. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to say vibe or energy or connection. The friendship alone provides, the platform for all that. So that's an important point. Now, what happens when you don't have effective communication? So we gave the benefits of it, we gave the importance of it, but what happens when you don't have effective communication? And I've watched this for over 20 years. I've watched couples, like thousands of couples, be talking about the same thing, but not know how to get the other person to understand the other person. And it's interesting, because what tends to happen is just a whole lot of arguments, a whole lot of disrespect, a whole lot of lack of unity. That's what tends to happen. And if the communication breaks down, I don't care, how great the sex is or how great the finances is or how great it's not going to last. I have not seen one situation where a couple is happy consistently and the communication sucks, but something else makes up for it. I've not seen one situation.
Right. And it's probably because both parties feel misunderstood in some capacity. So they don't feel like they're getting through to the other person. And I definitely think that in order to kind of navigate through communication skills, at least from my experience and with my marriage, is it just takes a lot of like self-reflection. To be honest, I used to be the type of person and even friend, like if I said something, I'm like stubborn. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
If I say something or I say how I feel, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, and someone would be like, hey, like, I don't like how you said that, or I don't necessarily agree with you, like, I would just automatically clap back. Like, I don't care. This is how I feel. I'm being honest. Like, I'm known as being honest, the honest friend or the honest person, the person who's going to give it to you straight, right? But I had to realize that I can't use that as a crutch for me being a bad communicator, because a lot of times when I'm passionate about something or I feel strongly about something, I don't really pay attention to my tone or my body language. It's just like, oh, you better take this because I'm being honest. But that was a hard pill to swallow. So especially when the people who matter most to you start to say, hey, you hurt my feelings, or hey, that is not okay. Like you can't say stuff to people like that. And so it took a while, and I'm a work in progress. But when you start to, I was just like, I would tell them and myself constantly that, oh, like, I know what I meant by it. I know that it's not coming from a bad place. There's no ill will. But I had to realize that perception is reality, and only I can change that reality for people. So what is it that I can correct about my tone or my body language or whatever, so that people don't think that I'm this evil person, because I know deep down inside that I'm not. So I would definitely say that it's not an easy thing to kind of navigate, but it does take a lot of self-accountability and reflection, and just being honest with yourself. Like, I had to sit down and have a meeting with myself, like, and say, hey, this is not okay, because if you keep allowing it to be okay, then this can, like you said, it can affect your relationships moving forward. I'm about to be a mother. I don't want my child to feel like they can't talk to me, or, I'm just gonna snap back and I'm not communicating well. So I'm like, I need to fix this now before it gets out of control. So.
Absolutely. And you're on the right track. So I praise you for that. And congratulations on the baby. I seen that, and I don't know if you seen my comment or not, but I was like, congrats.
Thank you so much. We're excited. I don't want to be a mean mother. I don't want my child to perceive like anything that I say like it's coming from a bad place. So I'm really trying.
You're ahead of the curve. I promise you. And the reason I say that, it's not because you got it all figured out. It's not because you don't have things that you don't struggle with. It's not because of that. It's because that you are consciously aware. You know how many? It's funny because I posted a post on Facebook that I just now posted on Instagram, like shortly before this call, and the post on Facebook got over 80,000 shares or views or whatnot, and it was just a picture of me and taking a photo taken by my wife because she's a photographer, and the post just said, "Pride kills more relationships than death does." And the reason I said that is because in over 20 years, you would not believe, whether it's a romantic relationship or not, you would not believe how many relationships end because of pride. A pride that says it's not my fault, it's yours. Pride that says, oh, I'm never wrong. Pride that says you can't tell me nothing about nothing. Pride that says this is how I feel, forget it. That right there is the stubborn heart, it's the hardened heart, is a fool, right? Because regardless of if you believe in Christianity or not, we can at least agree that nobody's perfect.
Right.
So if we agree that nobody's perfect and someone's telling you about your imperfection and you refuse that, so that means you continue to stay in that imperfection and cause your partner to suffer. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely going to cause a problem. That's like being in the middle of the ocean and you have a ship that you're on and there's a hole there and the water's leaking in the ship and you just ignore it. Right? Don't tell me about this flaw that I have. The flaw would be the hole in that situation. Right? So you're ahead of the curve. You really are. It starts with taking the plank out your own eye, which translates to being self-aware and conscious of yourself and your flaws.
Right. Well, thank you. I'll be right back after this message. Today's episode was brought to you by Anchor, my podcast host. I chose Anchor to host my podcast for several reasons. Number one, it's free. 2, the convenience. They have several creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on many different platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from podcasting. Yes, you can make money with no minimum listenership. If you're interested in starting a podcast today, everything you need to know, you can learn at Anchor.fm to get started. Thank you. So, I know that when, poor communication in any relationship can it will ultimately lead to conflict. And even if we take, we're always striving to become, like you said, we're never at the finish line when it comes to being a good communicator and effective communicator. But even like, no matter how hard you try at being better about it, conflict is something that's inevitable. Like, it's gonna happen, right? But I think that what makes the difference is how you navigate through it. So I know that you talk a lot about like conflict resolution and different ways that people can get through it, because it's gonna happen. And if you're single, this can be, your friendships, working relationships. Like, everyone doesn't love their coworkers, right? So like, I think that it's very important to talk about in relation to communication, because a lot of times you have to talk through things to get through things. So if you could on conflict resolution.
Well, it's funny because I just gave you the biggest tip, right? The Bible talks about, hey, take the plank out of your own eye before you take it out of someone else's, right? Right. A lot of people look at that verse and say, you shouldn't judge. Well, that's not true, right? Because in John 7:24, it says, judge righteously. So the Bible's not teaching, Christianity's not teaching that you should never judge. In fact, even if you're not a Christian or whatnot, not judging is just a ridiculous idea. So that means we don't judge cops who murder black people when they're supposed to protect us. We don't judge pedophiles. We don't judge murderers. We don't judge, so you're saying never to judge. So that means there's no justice for when wrong things are done in the evil world. So that thought is just not true. What the Bible is teaching is how to judge righteously. What a lot of people do is that it's so easy for them to point fingers at everybody but themselves. Right? It's always someone else's fault. You caused me to yell at you. You caused me to curse at you. You caused me not to do this, not to do that, or to do this. So it's damn if you do and damn if you don't, but it's never your fault. So what was that verse talking about? First, take the plank out your eye. That means work on yourself, be aware on yourself, sharpen yourself. That is I promise you all, that is the biggest tip that's going to eliminate good 50% of arguments, because most time people get into arguments trying to prove how they're right. Yeah. And the other person is wrong. That's many. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm guilty.
Yeah, we all are. And please, people, let me correct something before I go back to talking about the number one problem in communication, which is people not really being honest with their flaws and they're blaming other people. I like to say this. Being a communication expert or marital expert does not mean that I am perfect. No one who walks this earth's surface is perfect, right? It does not mean that. It doesn't mean that I have all the answers. If you look up the word expert, right, and do a study on the etymology of the word, which just means the origin of the word, all it means is someone who's wise with experience or skilled with experience. So in other words, legally in the United States, if you brought a expert into the courtroom, that expert would just have to know more than everybody else in the courtroom about a given topic for them to be called an expert. I have to say that because a lot of people, I'm so transparent with who I am. I've always been like that. So a lot of people will hear the stories that I tell about where I messed up with my wife. How you going to be an expert if you done messed up and expert does it? Bill Gates went bankrupt before he became millionaire. You know what I'm saying? Twice. So I just had to clarify that. But to go back to the point is, it starts with yourself. Conflict resolution starts with you, right? You. It starts with, am I wrong for this? Could I have done this better? Right? Of course, there's a balance, because you don't want to go too far to the left, because then people will take advantage and make it seem like it's always your fault. But it starts with you. Like, you have flaws. You have friends, you have family, you have people who have told you that this is a problem in you. So 4 or 5 people tell you, you might want to check that out.
I agree. Now, I think that at the core of all relationships, and I'm not going to be apologize for non-believers at this moment, but I think that at the core of any good relationship is Jesus. And I think that like I was sharing with Felice before we started to record, so many people throw around the term like Jesus at the center, or keep God in your marriage, things like that. They throw that around just as loosely as people saying praying for you. I can go look right now and post some sad status, right? And a stranger will, I can guarantee you, comment under and say praying for you. I know the person is not parting their lips to say a prayer for me, right? It looks like a polite notion. It looks like, common courtesy. But in the same way, I think that so many people are throwing around, keep God first, Jesus at the center. I was sharing with Felice that, like, at my wedding reception, we were going through like the notes and things that people left, and everyone's like, keep God first, do that, like everything relating to God. And that's all fine and dandy. But if I could be honest, some of the people who are writing those notes, I'm like, you don't do that. Like, looking in, that's not, that's not representative of your marriage. So I just feel like so many people throw it around loosely. And I just wanted to talk about that. Like, what does it mean to keep Jesus at the center? Like, how does that look? Because I think that it's a polite term or a polite statement at this point. And I don't think a lot of people get what that truly means.
That's an excellent topic. I might end up doing a topic of that on my own platform. Probably invite you or some other people. That's an excellent topic, and it really is. And it has a lot of nuances to it, especially since, I'm really big on the word, and I study it from different perspectives, and I mentor with pastors. So yeah, I'm more than just a casual reader of the word. That's how I came to Jesus. It was the word of God that I was just like, what the heck? This trumps every other like belief system in the world. Like, it's crazy. But anyways, that's another story. But let's keep it practical, right? It covers a lot of different nuances. That's like saying, how do you drive? Well, you put your foot on the gas. No, it covers a whole lot of things working together. But for the sake of discussion, let's keep it practical. I'm going to say that keeping Jesus at the center means that you think what Jesus thoughts. That leads your life. Not your feelings, not your own thoughts. Jesus. How he thought about a subject. What he teaches about a subject. What he teaches about relations in your relationship. What's an example of that? Let's talk about a very controversial topic, sex in marriage. Very controversial. I choose it purposely because I know it's a difficult topic for many. I know there's adultery, there's cheating, there's arguments about it, and I want to show you just how simply, keeping Jesus in the center can solve the problem. Now, what does Jesus teach about sex? He teaches that husband and wife shouldn't deny each other, except for prayer, except for fasting. Sure, we can understand health concerns, we can understand all that, but at the core of the message is not to show that, hey, you should be sex slaves, but it's to say that you shouldn't deny each other, right? Your husband and wife. Now, why shouldn't you deny each other? Because Satan will have a way to lead a spouse away with their own temptation, their own desire. Now, you got to keep in mind that sex is a wonderful thing, but the context of sex under God's eyes is marriage. So now that you're married, there should be no restraints now. Why? Because sex is a powerful force that leads a lot of people away. Satan uses that desire to lead a lot of people to do sinful things. So marriage was a context, a ground for that to be expressed in a healthy, safe way. What usually happens, though? Let's start with the husband. The husband gives no romance, no attention, no affection, just expects sex. That leads the woman to resent, withhold, lie, or use sex as manipulation, right, as a weapon. Okay, now let's go to the flip side. A woman will withhold sex because they're trying to control the man. They try to get the man to do a certain action, behave a certain way, get a certain result. And now the sex that was created for the couple to be expressed out of love and affection and enjoyed is now a power play. So how do you keep Jesus first? Well, you go back to how he taught sex was supposed to be. Not control, not manipulation. It's supposed to be romance. right? Because it talks about King Solomon, where it gives the example of always desiring his wife and always excited about his wife. That's the romance aspect. There's not a woman in the world that you can't turn on that loves you in a marriage when you're just excited about her. I don't care if it's excited about her intelligence, excited about her service she did, excited about just how beautiful she is, how cute she is, how funny she is. There's not a woman that I have met, correct me if I'm wrong now, that's not excited about the man that loves them being excited for them. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not.
So that's how you keep Jesus first. A lot of couples put their own feelings. Men do this too, but women generally think that their feelings are fact. I feel it must be fact. Now you need to deal with it. Men generally think that the way they think is, aligned with God's word all the time. So I thought about it. I logically has broke it down. I did my research. So therefore, I pay the bill. I don't cheat. I help around the house. So you should be giving me sex. I don't need to be. So that's how they're putting their own thoughts and their own feelings about what Jesus has taught about that. We could take every individual topic and break it down, and we can show how people say they put Jesus first, but they put their feelings and their thoughts first. They say the Jesus name, right? And I think it's because people don't trust the Bible. They don't think the Bible is sufficient. Even as Christians in the church, I've argued with many pastors who say they trust the Bible, but just not everything, or just not right here. We got to understand that as a Christian, the Bible comes first. Right. This Bible is what millions of people have died for. This Bible is what Jesus used to defend against Satan in the world. He used scripture. This Bible is what, Jesus taught and rebuked people with the Bible. The most powerful being to walk the earth used the Bible to heal, to rebuke, to teach, to correct, to guide, to save our sins. But yet this generation feels like the Bible was written by a white man. You can't trust the Bible. All this Bible, let me trust my feelings and thoughts. And then they wonder why relationships don't produce the results that God intended for the relationships. Well, you're not following God's direction or design. And in the words of Maya Angelou, it's like trying to swim on a stove. Like that's not the design of the stove. So that's my long-winded approach to that. Hopefully that wasn't a useless rant.
No, you're fine. And I couldn't agree anymore. I know that, like, looking back over my life, like even let's say outside of marriage, but if we think about like other topics and other ways, like I've had to, for instance, I know like a few years back, like when I was in college, I would pray about like my finances and things like that. But I had to take it back. I wasn't tithing. I wasn't doing what God told me to do with my money. So it's like, it's not that my prayers were empty, but it's just like I'm asking of something that he's already given me instruction to do, right? And so I think a lot of times today, especially, and even back in the day, people have been doing it for as long as ever. People treat the Bible like trail mix. I've seen this meme, like they pick and choose. They'll say, hey, I don't like the raisins. I'm going to throw that stuff in the trash, but I really like the M&Ms. I'll eat that. I'll keep eating them. So it's like, it's a matter of you make it convenient. You make God's word convenient to your situation. And I think that that's where we go wrong. So that was
exactly. And to add to that, it doesn't mean that you can perfectly live up to the Bible standards, because we're imperfect creatures, right? And there's certain things that take longer to be able to mold around our lives or to think. That's fair. But it's not our perfection that makes us Christians. It's our direction.
Right. I agree. Well, thank you so much for that. Starting to wrap things up, I'm sure people have questions for you. They want to hear more about you. His IGTV channel is great. Videos are on point. So I would encourage you all to listen and take note of how you can connect with him on social media, more about his services. And he even has a book. So if you can go ahead and speak on those things, that would be great.
Well, thank you. Well, if you want to follow me and you want to stay up to date, or you want to get weekly tips, and then I do videos or posts for me, and learn more topics like this, or learn to think through problems with communication. And you can follow me on Instagram, Married as One, exactly how it's spelled. You can follow me on Facebook, Married as One, or to learn more about me and little things and stay updated with my site, it's marriedasone.com. Now you can hit up the number on my site or send me an inbox in my social media, and the first 30 minutes counseling session is free, just for you to see how I can help, if I can help, and to kind of guide you in the right direction. Then we could talk about the pricing after that. And the book is coming out. I don't really want to talk about the book too much yet. The title is on my Instagram story, so I just gave people a quick glance, but I'm still going through the editing process of being professionally edited. So just stay up to date with the social media, and you'll know first when it comes out. But I would like to say a poem, a real quick poem, and if you allow me.
Sure.
And this quick poem, because you mentioned that I was the first guy on a podcast, and I've been with a lot of different people saying, hey, you're a man. What a man know about teaching a woman about relationships? Most men don't know relationships. You got to be a woman to be able to tell a woman how to be a woman and all this stuff. You know what's funny about that is that the same women who say that will follow women who are trying to tell men how men should be in a relationship. So I'm like, come on now, like you got to be fair if you're going to say that. But this poem is a poem that kind of addresses that. It's very, very short, and I just want to say a couple of lines just to get women to understand that I am not a woman. Yeah, I am a male, right? But that doesn't mean that I didn't grow up around women who were used and abused and cheated on, and that doesn't mean that I can't understand because I'm not a woman, or that I don't perfectly understand. But even if I don't perfectly understand, that doesn't mean that I can't share some insight that could be beneficial. So hopefully this addresses that. But ladies, I feel you. Really, I do. He don't do the things he used to do. Maybe he got too used to you, and that confuses you. You're too used to be fused. Now he makes moves like he's a dude used to solitude. Your move used to be fused. Now he does him and you do you too. What happened to you too? It went from, hey boo, now it's, oh, it's you. When in the beginning he was all over you. Now an argument or two and he's like, I'm all over you. So hopefully that addresses that a little bit.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your experience, your expertise today. And furthermore, thank you for sharing your poetic capabilities with us today. Definitely a sprinkle on top of all of the other great things that were discussed. But again, everyone, I hope that you all enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, please do us both a favor and share it with a friend or two, the people who you're in close relationship with, the people who you long for better relationships with. Go ahead and share this episode with them so that you all can make things better. And the goal is not to be perfect, but to at least be a work in progress. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Go ahead, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening in on today, and share. See you all next time. I'll be right back after this message. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. If you are new here, please consider subscribing on whatever platform you're listening in on today. Leave me a rating, leave me a review, comment, whatever you feel that you want to do. If you already consider yourself a part of the Yellow Room family, please consider making a small monthly donation to sustain and contribute to my growing platform. No amount is too small. Donations can be made at anchor.fm/theyellowroom/support. If you are unable to, I still love you just the same. You can still support me by listening, sharing, and providing feedback. I thank you all so much, and I appreciate your continued listenership. Thank you.